Hello, this is Corey, and I just want to talk a little bit about how I believe the Community Game Jam went for us. Let's talk about what we did right, what we did wrong, where I think we could have improved, and my overall feelings for it all. So with the Community Game Jam, I created a game called Shafted with two others, Anthony Reed and Jonathan Coates. I'll have a little bit of the gameplay playing in the background so you can watch while I talk about it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the scope of the game. I believe what we thought we had time to do was pretty accurate. We ended up completing everything that we wanted to get in as the core loop by the end of the time, but the scope maybe was a bit too large because we didn't get a lot of time to do any polish. We all work full-time jobs, and the Community Game Jam started for us at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning, so that essentially meant that the first few hours was lost to us because we were all still asleep at that time. We met up around, I think it was about 7:30 or so, and it was just Anthony and I at the time there because John was actually competing in a half marathon at the time. And then basically looked at the theme of the game, which was the game is a liar. We thought it was quite difficult. Most people would go for something very off the nose, like the game is straight up telling you lies, like for example, you can't jump but you can, or you don't need to collect coins but you actually do need to collect them. And we wanted to try to steer clear of something so I guess very off the nose, as I said before. So it took us quite a while to actually come up with our idea. It took about 8 hours or so in total of just throwing ideas around, lots of planning, not really getting anywhere, because every time that we started exploring ideas, we sort of felt like that they were not really fitting the theme super well. So I got a few of the ideas here, which I'll just share a few of our first ones. We started with real simple ideas, like there could be a voiceover which is misleading you or misdirecting you, telling you that you should go left when the actual path is going right, something along those lines. But we weren't really a fan of that one, and it was quite an early idea. Eventually we got to points where we were thinking about the graphics could be lying to you. So for example, you could have a roguelike game where an item appears to be a sword, but it's actually maybe a food item or something, and it doesn't reveal itself until you get close to it. And we were originally going to go with something like that, and we thought about those kind of ideas for quite a while actually, but then we sort of felt like it just didn't really play very fair, so we couldn't really come up with a way that didn't feel like it just being chance every time. Like, why would you run over and try and pick up a sword when you know for a fact that it's not actually going to be sword? Or most of the time it's not, and it's just going to be something else. There's no real strategy around that. It's just going over there, picking up something and making do with what you get there. So we sort of started trying to move away from that. Another idea that we thought about for a little while was a game like Candy Crush, where you have one tile which is your player character, which you need to move to the bottom to win the game. But like, we were sort of thinking that the tiles around your player would be the true tiles and all the rest of the game would be false tiles, so each tile would have two different states. But we just didn't really feel like that worked very well either, because you'd have to have an interaction between real tiles and fake tiles, and that didn't really seem like it was much at all. It doesn't have much substance. So we moved away from that one as well. We eventually just went through lots more ideas. John joined us a couple of hours later, and we just kept throwing ideas around. Eventually John had this idea where you operate an elevator, but the floors that you're pressing, so for example you press floor 1, you don't actually end up on floor 1, so you end up on floor 3 for example. And we really like this idea, and that's ended up what we're going with the game. So the elevator is sort of the lie, you know, the offset of the elevator. And the mechanic would call you up and be like, hey, we've got a bit of a problem with the elevator, the keys aren't mapping up properly, try and work with me while I try and work it out. And eventually he will start making changes to the elevator. So for example, if you're pressing floor 1 going to floor 3, you might now be pressing floor 1 and going to floor 5. And the whole idea of the game was trying to work out what the rules is around the elevator and trying to get your patrons to their correct floor and make them happy. As I was saying earlier, the scope of the game, I feel like, was quite doable for just the three of us in a week, but I guess we sort of overestimated how much time we'd actually be able to put into the game, being full-time workers and all. And especially with the 8 hours on Sunday being dedicated to coming up with an idea and playing it out a bit, it took quite a bit of our Sunday away, which was one of our biggest days for being able to actually work on the game, because, Monday to Friday we're working full-time. So it ended up being that there was a couple of hours in the evening each night after we've all gone home and made dinner and, all the usual stuff that you gotta do when you get home. So progress wasn't going as fast as we wanted, but we were trying to get it done as best as we could in the time that we got. So during lunch times at work, in the morning before we went to work, pretty much our whole lives for the last week, it's just been game development in our free time. Saturday was a long day. We spent... Some of us spent nearly 20 hours that day just game developing, because we got up nice and early on Saturday and we worked all the way through to 5 a.m. on Sunday just before submission time. And we wanted to get everything in there. We didn't really want to cut anything, so we kept putting in extra time. I want to just talk a bit about what we did for tracking tasks. So we used a program called Asana, and the reason we used Asana was because Anthony and John both use this program at their workplace for tracking issues or just creating tickets for their tasks. So it's similar to Trello or Jira or something like that, but I don't think it's quite as feature fleshed out. And I'm not really sure if this is just because I was missing things, or it really just isn't as fleshed out as it seems to be. But from what I've been searching, it really doesn't have as many features as I would like. So the biggest problem with it is it just seems like a to-do checklist, really. There's no real state to it. There's no moving things from, not started to testing or, finished, anything like that, which was maybe a little bit of a problem. But we started with it and there was tasks in there, so we just pushed through with it. And it wasn't a huge deal, but I definitely feel like using something like Trello is a much better option for even just small tasks. I don't feel like using Jira would have benefited us, because we use Jira at work quite a lot, and I found that it's quite slow and cumbersome a lot of the time, and it probably would have been a bit overkill for what we're doing in just a week. But something with Trello would have been a good idea, where we could move tasks between not started yet or in progress, so we could all see where everybody is all the time without having to, just message everybody and be like, hey, are you working on this, or have you done this yet, or what are you working on right now? Which gets a little bit stale pretty quickly, but we use Slack as well for communications. We have a Slack channel that we're all part of already, because we're friends outside of the game jam. We just talk there and stuff. So we created a new channel in there for talking to each other about the community game jam stuff and just keeping it all in there. We didn't have a Google Drive folder specifically. John created one near the end to upload all his assets because he had to head out for a while, so that was good, but I think maybe starting a Google Drive folder at the beginning would have been a better plan, because I remember spending time just scrolling up the Community Game Jam channel looking for assets that John had posted, or looking for mock-ups that he had done to make sure that I was doing this correctly, or that mine looked exactly like his mock-up did. Well, that's also something I want to talk about, is having John do those mock-ups was just fantastic. It's really useful having a vision, being able to see where your game's going really early, because everybody knows that feeling of when you've worked with placeholder assets, when you start Unity and you have that blue background and you don't change it and you keep looking at it and you're like, oh, this game doesn't look fantastic. Being able to have a vision for that is great, and John passing us assets early and putting them into the game just really motivated us, because it's starting to come together look-wise real quickly. Overall though, I think we had a lot of fun during the Community Game Jam. I definitely haven't had this much fun developing in a long time. I've really missed game development, and I've just been sucked into my full-time job, and just really haven't been doing much game development recently, mainly because I get home and I'm tired and I just haven't really felt it. But having this game jam to really push us to get back into it has been really great, and it's been a lot of fun. We all enjoyed it together and we're proud of our product. As for the gameplay itself, it's got everything we wanted to get in there for the game jam. It's missing a few features, like we wanted to have a messaging system in there where you can call up the mechanic and he'll give you a clue as to what the offset of the floor is, or some other way that the floors are mapped, and then you can use all those clues to try and work out exactly how the elevator is working, and then eventually he'll mix it up and you do it all again. But we never got around to that, which is a little bit unfortunate, but you know, it's okay. It's something that if we continue to work on this, which everyone seems to be very keen on, we'll probably end up putting something like that back in there. But yeah, overall, really fun. I look forward to playing everyone else's submissions and rating them, leaving comments on them, just seeing what everyone else has created, because I've already seen some fantastic games come out of this, and it's really impressive what people can pull off in a week, to be honest. Thanks for listening. We look forward to doing some more game jams. Play our game if you can, that would be great, and leave any feedback, because we definitely need all the feedback we can get. We want to learn from this, we want to make it bigger and better, and you know, it's our joy, so we want to do the best we can with it. So yeah, thanks for listening. Hope you have a great day.